It had been a long day at the hotel. The usual chaos of hell swirling around you as you tried to finish up your tasks. The night in the hotel were always loud and full of strange happenings. But tonight there was an unsettling quietness, a silence that almost felt like something was waiting to pounce. You had just finished up cleaning and preparing for bed when you noticed something strange. A piece of your clothing was missing. You could have sworn you'd put it away neatly, but now it was gone. Confused, you searched through your drawers and closet, but there was no sign of the item, not even a trace of fabric from where it had once been. Just as you were about to give up and figure it was just lost, you noticed something red hanging out from under your bed. Your heart skipped a beat, and you reached down cautiously, pulling out a delicate crimson lace lingerie set. It was yours, no doubt about it. But the question was, how did it end up under your bed? You felt a chill immediately crawled down your spine at the thoughts. Immediately went to one person who had been acting increasingly strange around you. Alastor. You stood up quietly, looking around, but before you could process what was even happening, a familiar voice echoed from the doorframe. Well, well, darling. Alastor's voice purred, smooth as velvet, but carrying a weight of something darker. I see you found it. You froze. Slowly, you began to turn to see him standing in the doorway, his red eyes glowing with that unnerving, almost predatory gleam. His usual charming smile was stretched across his face, and there was unmistakable intensity to it, a possessiveness that sent a ripple of unease through your chest. What do you mean? You stammered out, your fingers still clenching the clothing as your mind began to race. How did you... Oh, darling, Alastor interrupted with a soft chuckle, his voice dripping in amusement. You mustn't be so coy. It was me who found it after all. I just couldn't resist keeping it for myself. It's not every day one gets to uncover such delicate pieces of you. You stood still, unsure of how to respond. His words made your stomach twist in an unpleasant way. The way he was staring at you, his eyes fixed on both the lingerie in your hand. But it just made you feel both exposed and trapped in the same way. I didn't give you permission to take that, you muttered out, trying to reclaim some sense of control. Oh, darling, permission? Alastor's smile only widened, the corner of his lips curling into something that was far from comforting. What's the use of permission when I already know what's best for you? He took a step closer, his eyes never leaving the lingerie. You see, I've always admired your taste. You have such a unique way of expressing yourself, so bold and intriguing, but you must know these little trinkets of yours. They're far too precious to be left lying around. Your pulse quickened, panic rising in your chest, but you tried to maintain composure. For the look in Alastor's eyes, the way his gaze lingered on it, then shifted to you, made it clear he wasn't just going to let this go. You can't take my things without asking, you said, trying to stand your ground, though your voice was shaky. That's wrong, Alastor. He tilted his head as if genuinely confused by your reaction. Wrong? Darling, I only take what's mine, he said, his tone soft and almost affectionate. And you, my dear, are most definitely mine. The realization hit you like a ton of bricks, but before you could even respond, Alastor was already standing directly in front of you. His presence felt suffocating, like the very air around you was charged with a strange energy that made it hard to breathe. He took the lingerie from your hand, his fingers brushing against yours in a way that sent a shiver down your spine. His smile was softer now, almost tender, though there was a darkness in his eyes, That made it more unnerving. "You see, darling," Alastor said softly. His voice laced with sweetness and something that had danger in his eyes. "Everything about you fascinates me. And this?" He glanced down at the lingerie, his smile curling into something more sinister. "This is just one of many ways I get to know you intimately." You felt your stomach twist, but before you could even speak, Alastor stepped closer, closing the distance between the two of you. It was practically non-existent. His hand reached up, gently cupping your chin, forcing you to meet his gaze. "Don't worry, my dear," he whispered. "You're safe with me. I'll make sure no one else gets to see you the way I do." There's something deeply possessive in his voice now, a promise that sent a cool shiver down your spine. You could see it. The way his obsession grew, the way his obsession with you had taken root, and it grew darker and dangerous. He stepped back, still holding clothing in his hand, inspecting it as though it was an ancient treasure. "You're so much more than anybody could ever understand. And now I have a little piece of you all to myself." You tried to step back, but Alastor's grip on your chin tightened just enough to hold you in place. "Relax, darling. I'm not going to hurt you." His smile was too calm, too soothing, but it didn't ease your growing fear. "You're mine now, in every way, and I'll take great care of you." Your mind raced, trying to comprehend just how deep Alastor's expression had gone. He wasn't just interested in you anymore. He was claiming you, marking you, in ways that left no room for escape. There was more than affection, it was ownership. And just as Alastor slowly backed away, still holding your clothing in his hand, you couldn't help but feel a deep, unsettling certainty come over you. There was no turning back, not now, not ever. He was determined. And you didn't know if he'd ever let you go. But that was days ago. The days began to pass, and they were followed with that strange sensation you couldn't shake. It was like a shadow had fallen over you, one that loomed constantly, no matter where you went or what you did. You tried to ignore the way Alastor's gaze seemed to follow you, always lingering just a moment too long, always just behind you. Even when you tried to distance yourself, you felt like he was everywhere, in the lobby, in the halls, on occasion, on errands, always watching, always waiting. The incident had left you both feeling violated and trapped, your thoughts unable to escape an unnerving way Alastor had taken it from you with such casual ownership. It wasn't just about lingerie, it was about what it meant, the possession that Alastor had marked you with, a claim, a piece of you without permission. And you knew this was just the beginning. You would hope that it was just a slip-up, that perhaps he'd lose interest after a while, but instead he only grew more insistent, more determined. His attention was like a heavy weight, smothering and apprehensive. And the longer it went on, the more you began to question yourself and your own reality. One evening, after a long day of work, you headed back to your room, desperate to find some peace. But when you entered, you froze at the sight before you. Alastor was in the room, standing in the middle of it, his back to you. He casually adjusted his tie. He was so nonchalant about it, as though it was perfectly normal for him to be standing in your private room in the dead of night. "Alastor?" you stated, your voice shaky, unsure of how he would react. "What are you doing in here?" His head snapped around. That was infuriating, maddening smile spread across his face like wildfire. "Ah, darling," he said sweetly. "It was just admiring the room. It's rather charming in its disarray." You felt your heartbeat begin to quicken up. your body tensing as you backed away. I didn't invite you in. How did you get in here? Alastor took a step forward, his every movement graceful, almost predatory. Oh, darling, the door was open, he said with a chuckle. I don't need an invitation to where I belong. You stumble backwards. You don't belong here, Alastor. You snap. His eyes narrowed, and there was air in the room. It began to shift. There was an eerie quiet sound before his voice broke the silence, deep and low. Is that how you see me, darling? He asked, his tone dripping with both hurt and something far darker. Am I truly not welcome? I thought we had something special. I thought you understood. He was moving closer to you. You could feel the weight of his gaze suffocating and intense. Alastor, stop. This isn't love, this is obsession, he pleaded, backing up until you were against a wall. His smile didn't stop, though, but there was a deadly edge to it. Obsession? He repeated, tilting his head as though the word itself was so foreign. No, darling. This is care. This is protection. This is the kind of love that will never let you go. His hand reached out, gently cupping your face. There was a soothing touch to it, but it was firm. You could feel the grasp, unrelenting power in his hand. You see, my dear, he whispered, I'm not going anywhere. You belong to me. You are mine in every way. A chill ran down your spine. You felt a lump form in your throat. I don't want this, you whispered, desperate for an escape. You say that now. But I'm patient. I can wait, and in time you'll see that, while you need me, you're mine, and I'll make sure you never forget it. And then he left the room, leaving you there with your thoughts. The days began to bleed into each other, your anxiety taking a high sheet up. You didn't know what to do. But one evening, after another long day, things just were horrible. You tried to keep them together, but it was horrible. The hotel was quieter than usual, but it didn't ease the gnawing fear in your chest. You just wanted some break from Alastor. You walked into your room and shut the door behind you. You froze. The room felt different. And then you saw it. On your bed, on the sheets, there was a new piece of lingerie, but not just any. The same exact set that you had lost weeks ago, the one that had vanished without a trace. But it was newer. You felt your pulse race. You look up, searching the room for any sight of him. Do you like it, darling? Alastor asked sweetly, his voice smooth, making you flinch as it was so sudden. He slowly took a step forward, but it felt like he was closing in from every direction. I've had it freshened up, just for you. It's so much better when it's mine, isn't it? You backed away in fear. What the hell is wrong with you? You demanded, trying to stand your ground, though your voice trembled. Why are you doing this? I told you, I'm not... Not what? He interrupted, his voice low and cutting like a blade. Not mine, you can't fool me. You've known all along. You belong to me whether you realize it or not, and it's already too late. You took another step back. He was faster, cornering you against the wall. His eyes never left yours. His fingers began to touch your cheek. You flinched away instinctively, but he was firm, keeping you in place. You see, darling, he whispered, leaning in close enough that you could feel the heat of his breath against your skin. I know you're scared. I know you don't understand why I'm doing this, but it's simple, really. His voice softened to something affectionate. I'm protecting you from yourself. No one else can have you. Only me. No one else can love you the way I do. Your heart was racing now, the weight of his words sinking in deeper. You knew it would never stop unless you gave in. You can't keep doing this, you whispered, almost pleading. I'm not yours and I never will be. Your voice shaking. His grin only widened. Oh, but darling, he said with his voice a blend of mockery and sincerity. You already are. You just don't know it yet. His words were like poison, crawling through your mind, planting seeds of doubt and fear. You knew that you couldn't escape. You knew that you couldn't run. It was futile. Alastor wasn't just the radio demon. He was a master of a twisted game. He would never let you go. Not unless he decided to. And you didn't think that was ever going to happen. Before you could find the words to respond, his grip on you tightened. He leaned back and looked at you, his eyes filled with something darker than affection. It was hunger and unrelenting hunger. And I'll keep you, darling. And no one will ever take you from me. In that moment you understood. There was no escape from his twisted love. You were trapped, bound by his obsession. And you were forced to live with the consequences.